Oh man, I love that new intro. So hello everybody. Welcome to episode 15 of Beyond the Finish Line. Today we're going to take a deep dive into an often unspoken word of did not finish or DNFs. I'm your host, Joe Hardin, and today we're gathering a roundtable of passionate athletes and enthusiasts who have all faced their own challenging moments in their ultra running journey. And today I'm going to have them share their personal stories, insights, and lessons learned, what went right, what went wrong from their own DNFs. I'm kind of hoping we come away with a lesson, maybe a few laughs. So shout out to Albie Day. He was nice enough to kind of fall on the sword and sign up for this. I reached out on Threads, I believe it was Threads, a while back to see if anybody wanted to talk DNFs. I had an opportunity to listen to Albie talk about some DNFs and kind of his outlook on a refreshing outlook, I must add, on ultra running and on a podcast called Let's Run It Again. And so I'm really stoked to have Albie on. Also, we've got Aum Gandhi, who's also the co-host of What's in Your Earbuds with me. And we're going to talk about, Aum's DNF journey, and kind of his takeaway, what he learned, what went wrong and right. And also, I figured I better invite the owner of Run Try Bike onto this podcast as well, Jason Bahumandi. We're going to talk with Jason also about the word DNF and kind of what it means to him, what he's learned throughout his extensive ultra running journey along with Aum. They both have really impressive running careers. And I've always appreciated their insights on just about every topic, running, outside of running too. So join us as we explore these emotions behind the DNF, how it shapes our future pursuits and resilience it takes to keep moving forward. The highs and lows, all these challenges that were met. So I kind of hope we get real about what it means to DNF and kind of what we learned. Not just in the actual act of ultra running, but beyond the finish line. And real quick, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. Before we bring everyone forward, friends of the pod, your support is invaluable. So please do us all a huge favor. Like, share, subscribe to the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcast. Outside of my show, we have 6 other shows: Fireside Chats, Fiery Embers with Jason and Aum Gandhi, Running Tales with my name, Craig Lewis, Across the Pond. Great podcast. What's in Your Earbuds? That's with me and Aum. We talk everything music, a little bit of running here and there. We have a really awesome playlist. Anybody can add to that playlist. If you want to reach out to any of us, we'll give you a collaborators link. There's almost, I think, over 5 hours of music on that playlist now. It's really, really cool. Super diverse playlist. Music from all over the globe now on that playlist. It's really, really cool. And Caffeinated Coaching with Lori Hauk. A really, really great podcast. Tons of great content coming out. Your engagement helps us build this community. You are an integral part of that community. We can't do this without you. So please hit that button, share, rate, review. It's free to do so, and it helps us build this fantastic network. So without further ado, let's bring everyone forward for this DNF Roundtable episode. All right.
We have so many DNF stories, we don't know where to start. That's
yeah. So this is an experiment on my part. We did a roundtable before, Albie, and it was really, really cool. And Aum took the reins. He did really well. So I kind of want to take a shot at this, So I had this idea. I thought it'd be kind of cool to like have a collective of DNF stories and lessons. I don't know if anything, almost like in a selfish way, I kind of want to learn for myself, about DNFs, like kind of how to get over them, how to learn and grow from them. And I thought, what better way than to get a collective hive of stories and things like that, and get it all out on the table in one round table episode. But before that, I wanted to give you, Albie, a shot. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. Like I said, you don't have to be real brief. I think we just started following each other on Threads. I haven't had a ton of time to get to know you other than I got to listen to you on a podcast earlier this week. It was really great, by the way. You're well spoken. I loved your story. And I think you would be a perfect fit here with the Run Try Bike community. I mean, I just kind of want to learn more about you. That's why I do this. And it's always so unique to learn about people and meet new people in this journey. So I just kind of want to give the floor to you. Tell us about your running journey, your story. Whatever you want to share on that end, we are all ears.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That you gave me a perfect introduction to start my story at the end of my story. You just said that the thing you enjoy is to meet people, connect, the community, right? My ultra running journey has ultimately landed me in a position where I realized that the two most important things to me when it comes to running, when I show up for a race, the two most important things, my goals are always, I want to run far, I want to run far in the woods, and I want to make meaningful connection with people. And ultra running is one of the few sports that exist where you can do that. You get to spend hours upon hours upon hours with someone you may never have met before. And the first time you meet someone, you end up sharing stories through the middle of the night, and you know that person by the time the sun comes up in the morning. And it's the only, and I realize that's the high that I chase. It has nothing to do with the finish line and the buckles, and I'm chasing that connection in the community. So I'll back it up. I'll give you as close as I can, the abridged version of how I ended up sitting in this chair talking to everybody here. So I haven't been a runner that long. I started running in 2019. In the middle of 2018, my girlfriend, who was concerned for my physical well-being, because I was 300 pounds and had been 300 pounds for most of my adult life, she asked me if I would be interested in trying to make a life shift. She said, I'll get you a trainer if you think it's something you'll try. And I had never wanted to. I didn't care. I was kind of perfectly happy living my life the way that I was. And eventually I said, you know what? If you feel like it, if it's important to you, I'll give it a try. And so I got hooked up with a personal trainer, and I tried for 1 month. And I'm not someone who likes wasting my time. So I figure if I'm going and I'm doing this, I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to put in the effort. And I cleaned up my diet, and I started eating clean, and I started, portioning correctly and paying attention to macros. And I became like one of those, I became a meal prepper. And I went all in, and I did it for a month, and I started working out with my trainer and eating right. And I realized I actually kind of like it. Like, I enjoyed it. There was some purpose to it, and I felt good. And that continued then for 8 months, and I lost 120 pounds in 8 months. And then my trainer said to me, he said, you've got this new body. And I lost too much weight for my frame, and I ended up having to put some weight back on purpose. But my trainer said to me, have you ever heard of Spartan races? I said, no idea what that is. And he got me to go. We signed up for some OCR races. We went down to Florida, ran them together. And the OCR part was cool, but I realized I really like the running. The running in between all of the silly obstacles. I like this. And so then my wife came to me. I might interchange wife and girlfriend. They're the same person. We've been married for 10 years. We still call each other boyfriend and girlfriend. So she came to me. She was a former runner, and she said, I really want to run a marathon. And I said, that sounds awesome. And she said, I want to run the Disney Marathon. I said, okay. And she said, I want to run the Dopey Challenge. And I said, I don't know what that is, because I wasn't really a runner. My experience with running at this point had just been these couple of Spartan races, and it's not really running. You're running in between. And I said, I don't know what that is. And she said, oh, it's you run a 5K, a 10K, a half, and a full on consecutive days. And I went, that sounds terrible. I want nothing to do with that. But I'll support you if that's what you want to do. Like, I'll be along for the ride. The next day I went to her and I said, the thing you were talking about yesterday, do you have somebody that will do that with you? And she said, no. We weren't in a running community, and I said, if you want me to do it with you, I will. And she said, well, the deadline for registration was yesterday when I talked to you about it, and it fills up like that. And I said, okay. She goes, well, I signed you up yesterday. And I said, okay, so when is it? And she told me when it was, and this was in mid 2019. And I found out, okay, I have 6 months to learn how to run and go run a marathon. So I started going down that journey and realizing I actually really like this. And before I finish out this story, of the three of you here, have any of you heard of the race that happens in New Jersey? It's called Loopy Looper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the course for Loopy Looper is about 200 feet that way. Now, this was 2019, and one day I went out for my run. It was my long run Saturday. It ended up being the first time I ever ran 13 miles. This was like, I was very proud of myself. This was, this was a momentous occasion for me, going from, we were still within the first year of me figuring out what my new weight loss body can do, right? And I'm out running around this river loop behind my house. And all of a sudden I realized there's more people here than normal. And I didn't think much of it because of the fact that they hold races there all the time. There's 5Ks and stuff, and I didn't think anything about it. So, I finished my run and I come home. And about 8 hours later, we leave to go to the grocery store, and I'm driving out. This is in the middle of August. I'm driving out, and all these people are still out there running. So it's like 104 degrees, and they're still running around this, and it made my brain explode. And so I found a sign. There was a sign, one of the race signs said endless endurance on the side of it. So I Googled it. And because it was the first year it was the first year they did that race, it actually took some time to find it because there wasn't a whole lot out there for it. I figured out what it was, and I'm going, that's ludicrous. That then started me down a path where I started looking at, okay, what is this? Fast forward through the rest of that year, and we ended up running the Rehoboth Marathon together in December before January when we did Dopey. We did Dopey together, had a blast, January of 2020, and obviously then the whole world shut down. But the whole time I was doing that, I started reading everything I could get my hands on that had to do with ultra running because I was intrigued by it, because this one day I accidentally ended up in the middle of a 12-hour race having no concept that ultra running even existed. So I decided, okay, I want to run a 50K. And so I signed up for a race it was in Asheville, and went out to run that race, and I broke my ankle at mile 2.
Oh, damn.
Man.
And so when I said I was reading everything and listening to everything I could get my hands on for ultra running, at that point, it was almost exclusively David Goggins. So when I rolled my ankle at mile 2 in my very first 50K, I was not going to quit. You stay hard and you
stay
run
hard, right?
And I did DNF that race. I DNF'd my very first 50K, but I DNF'd that race at mile 25 with heat stroke, and I got pulled from the course.
Oh, wow.
The broken foot had me way slower than I planned to be out there, and it was August in North Carolina. And heat is not my superpower. I do a lot of things really well, and exist in the heat is not one of them. So I kind of passed out on the course, got pulled. But what I knew, so my first experience with ultra running was a DNF. But it was also the only time that I ever pushed myself with a real injury I should have stopped with. Ended up in a boot for 2 months, and it really impacted the rest of my life for a long time. And ended up coming back. I came back from that race in a boot, and it was the same week that Loopy Looper was then held for the second year. And I hooked up with the race director, and we ended up volunteering at the race.
Oh, cool.
For the last 5 years now, that race, we're a staple of the race. We run my girlfriend and I run the mid-loop aid station, and we're there every year. I always have some kind of surprise for the runners that they don't know what to expect. Nice. Last year I started making slushies in the middle of the afternoon because my house is right here. I can come back and I'm throwing stuff in my Vitamix and taking it back out there. And it gave me a taste of what the ultra running community is like, because of the fact that while I was broken from my first attempt at an ultra that ended in a DNF, I immediately got to reinsert myself back into that community in a support role. And I really, really loved that. So once I was healed, I ended up running, I ran my first 50K the end of that year on the same course, because they do one in the wintertime, Frosty River. And I then started thinking to myself, okay, I can run a 50K now. What can I do? Can I do more than that? I kind of had something to prove to myself, right? A little bit of especially going through the weight loss journey I'd just gone through, I needed to know, what am I capable of? And so I decided I was going to run a 100-mile. And so I signed up for the Hainsport endurance race. I'm in New Jersey, so I was looking for something local, and I went and I ran that race. It's a 1-mile loop that's kind of shaped.
Hold on a second. Your decision to run 100 miles was going to be on a 1-mile loop to begin with. So you can run.
I had to run past my car 100 times.
Oh, goodness gracious.
That's mental grief, man.
That's hardcore.
I'll never do it again.
Love Luke.
I absolutely. So I love that race director. So that's Beast Coast. The race director, her name is Vanessa Klein. She's the best. Once again, I go and I volunteer at her races now. Actually, the Hainsport race just happened this year, and I went to it. But this year I went to it and I played music. I set up and I played live music at the race, because I don't want to run it ever again.
Man, I don't blame
you. So it's a 1-mile loop, and I show up for this race. I was trained. I was ready. You know, I knew that I thought I could do it, but I really needed to know if I did. And I was having a great day. Right up until about mile 56, and I started having some foot problems. It was a hot day. I didn't know anything really about foot care yet at all, and all the skin from the pad, like the skin underneath the fatty pad of my foot on both feet, it's separated and shifted forward and bunched up underneath of my toes. So it was just all exposed skin under there, and my Achilles were both stripped raw. And so I got to the point that, like, every step, I couldn't take another step. It hurt too bad. It was just like razor blades under my feet. And I still had that death before DNF mentality. I would not quit. Because I didn't know if I could do it yet. I needed to prove to myself that I can run 100 miles, and I wasn't going to quit. And so I remember going into the timing tent at like mile 50, I think it was around 56. And I said, I don't know what to do, because I can't run anymore, but I don't want to quit. And a woman at the timing tent, she gave me the best advice anyone's ever given me in a race. And that was, don't make a decision right now. Go, sit down, take some time. Just sit with yourself and figure, just don't make any rash decisions. And so I did. And then a friend of mine, a friend who was at that race, he ran by and saw me, and he's like, hey, come on, take a walk with me. So I threw on a pair of slides and I walked with him for 3 miles. And I found out later he was trying to talk him. He was contemplating quitting. And me talking myself out of dropping when I was walking around with him kept him in the race. And when I got back to my little aid station, I took out everything that I had that could be construed as foot care, and I mummified my feet, wrapped everything up, put my socks on, taped my socks on the outside. Like, we went full, just tape everything up. And the next 20 miles of that race were the fastest 20 miles I ran the whole race.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up, because they had a cutoff. You had to hit 80 hours by 8 o'clock in the morning, 80 miles by 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was behind it because I'd spent so much time messing around. But I made up the time, got to this sunrise, and thought to myself, oh my God, I only have to run another 20 miles. I can do this. And I finished with a lot of suffering. There was an intense amount of suffering.
The absurdity of that statement, right? Only have to run another 20 miles.
Only 20 miles.
It's amazing the way our minds work when it comes to these things, right? I've run 80 and I only have to run 20, but you talk to the average person on the street and they're like, the excuse, right? I don't even like driving that far. Like that's how
Yeah.
amazing the mindset can be sometimes.
The context. Everything is about context,
Yeah.
right? The thing that surprised me the most about that experience was that after I finished, I got depressed. I didn't want to run anymore. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't injured. Once my feet healed from, once the skin, and it didn't take that long, maybe a week or two tops. Um, I was, I was lethargic. I was apathetic. I was bordering on depression. And the thing that I was really confused by was, wait a minute, I did the thing. Like I did the thing. I set a goal. I didn't know if I could do it. I did it. Why am I not like, I should be ecstatic about this. And I wasn't. And I really struggled with that. I didn't want to run anymore. And I ended up talking with a bunch of different, but I kept it to myself for several months. And finally, I started talking to a few other runners that I'd become friends with. And they all said, oh my goodness, they were like, I dealt with a lot of those same feelings after I finished my first 100. And kind of talking about it really helped like take some of its power away. And all of a sudden I could run again, and the joy was back. And so now I'm an ultra runner now, right? Because I did the thing. I ran 100 miles, but I still kind of felt like an imposter in the community, because still, even though I've lost a ton of weight, I show up for a race. I don't look like everybody else. I'm not the tall, skinny guy with a mustache. I've got the right beard.
You got the beard though.
Let me tell you something. If there's an ultra runner look, I don't have it.
Who knows what it is?
No mustache, no beard, all of 5'6". Like,
Yeah.
But these are the narratives we give ourselves, right?
yeah.
So I felt like an imposter, and I didn't know. Now that I had gone and done the thing, right? I met the goal. I didn't know what my drive was anymore. I had no why. And I ended up finding it when my wife and I went to Maui. She wanted to run the Maui Marathon, so we did. We went and ran the Maui Marathon. This was 2 years ago, and while we ran that together, had a great time. A few days after the marathon, we have an arrangement whenever we travel anywhere that I get a day. I get one day where I can go and I can run up a mountain, get lost in the woods. I have however much of that day that I need. I can go do it. And so I did this in Hawaii. I went and I ran up to the top of Haleakala, which is a dormant volcano in the middle of Maui.
Oh, cool. I
went up to the top. Then the summit is at 10,000 feet. And I went up there at sunrise. And there's a whole bunch of people.
Nice.
It was chilly, and it was beautiful. And there's a lot of people that drive up there to go watch the sunrise. I was the only one who was putting on a hydration vest and strapping my shoes on and everything to go run down inside. There's a single track trail that goes down the inside of the crater and kind of meanders around the bottom. And so at sunrise, 10,000 feet, I'm above the clouds. I'm watching the sun come up the other side of this crater. And I had like an existential moment where I realized, oh, this is why I do this. Like, this is it. This is the reason. Yeah. The reason is I'm not trying to be faster than everybody else. I'm not trying to pad my ultra running stats. The reason I'm doing this is because when I go somewhere and I look up and I go, there's a mountain there. I wonder what's up there. I want to be able to go up there. That's what I train for now. What I train for is to be able to go, oh, I want to go up there. And so now I've done that every place we've gone where we've traveled. I did it. We were in Italy in the Dolomites this summer. Same thing. I leave in the morning. I summit a mountain. I stand up there and I go, I might have a good cry up here today. And then I come back down.
Have a good cry, man. Gotta have a good cry.
And so the act of DNFing, you can't DNF something if your goal is to go out and enjoy the experience, not get to the end.
Oh yeah, 100% agree with that.
Yeah, it's it's funny. Like, I think that all of us, in our own way, it's first off, it's amazing when you switch your mindset from what is the outcome going to be to just enjoying the process. And I think you're doing that there, Albie, I think you got to that realization when you got to the top of that 10,000 foot summit and you saw that sunrise, that this is the thing that I live for. Like, this process allows me to have these moments. And I think for me, from my first DNF at a 100-mile race at Antelope 100 in 2022 to my most recent DNF, I really shifted my mindset to being process driven. And it's just incredible when you realize, like, I think it even goes back to the point that Jason made, like, you get to sunrise and you're like, I got 20 more miles to go. Like, this is the mindset that we've created for ourselves. Like, and it's amazing how if you keep focusing on the outcome, you notice that the goalposts just keep moving and moving. Like, I DNF'd Moab this year at mile 82. And for me, I couldn't have even fathomed running a quarter of a mile when I first started running in 2018. Like, that's how far the goalposts have moved. But if I had stayed fixated on the fact that I didn't get to 240 miles, that I didn't get some buckle or piece of metal, I wouldn't have realized that my goalposts have moved so far, that I am failing at 82 miles now, that I'm failing at a Triple Crown now. But now I look back at it, and when I look fondly back at that race, I think about the laughs, between the pukes, the laughs, and the midnight conversations that Jason and I had, getting sidetracked on that course, like, and the moments that I had out there, both good and bad. And I think that regardless of the outcome of the events, we've all had our wins and losses. Like, I just really am starting to love the process and what it gives me. I don't know. Would you and Joe agree with that, Jason?
Yeah. So my first DNF, and I just had to look it up to make sure I was correct on the year, which tells you how important a DNF is in my mind, was 2018. And it was in Texas at Possum's Revenge. And it's a 17-mile loop, I think is what it is. And the first loop, it's hot as all get out in Texas. And I'm tripping over roots and I'm dirty now. So I'm pissed because I got sand everywhere. And I finished the loop and I'm standing at the start line to go out on the second loop. And I'm literally just standing there contemplating, do I really want to go out there, trip and fall again, be dehydrated, from my perspective, waste my time. And the race director came over to me and he's like, are you okay? Obviously thinking health issues. And I said to him, his name is Rob Goyen. He used to run trail racing over Texas. And I said, well, the reality is, like, this race isn't that important to me in the sense that I'm starting Ironman training in 2 weeks. And he was like, wait a minute, you're going to be Ironman training in 2 weeks? Why are you standing at the start line? Go sit down. And he was like, he gave me permission to DNF his race. And from a race director, that means a lot, right? They want completion rates to be as high as they can so they can generate registrations. And I sat down and I had a good cry. It was the first DNF I ever had. And once I got over that cry, I went and volunteered at the race, helping people come across the finish line because it was hot, getting them water and everything else. And I realized in that moment that the DNF isn't that big of a deal, that, the stories, to what Albie said, the camaraderie, the connection to people, the helping everybody out meant a lot more to me. And that's not to say that DNFing becomes one of those things where I'm like, just fuck it, I'll just DNF now. But it has a lot less impact on me than it used to. I told this story in the green room when I DNF'd at the Canyons. Again, hot as all get out. It's the 50K mark. I'm puking. And I just thought to myself, this is dumb. Like, I'm going to drag my carcass to the next aid station to then DNF there. Why? Just DNF now. And I did. And when I got brought back to the start line of the race, Aum and Lori were there. And I was like, let's go get pizza now. Like, let me shower and let's go get pizza. Right. Which was a much better use of my time and enjoyment and stories and laughter. And, you start to realize the work that you put into these things, the wake up call alarms, the late night runs, the treadmill runs, the planning out your nutrition, your hydration, like all of that shit takes so much time and effort, but you should be enjoying that journey because you don't know what race day might bring you. You might not even get a race day. What if there's a torrential storm? Like, who knows, right? So enjoy the process of getting to the start line, and then enjoy the victory lap on your way to the finish line is how I would think about that, to answer your question, Aum.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
100%. It's funny. I think what I noticed is we've all kind of discovered that same thing. It's like, so Albie said something and Jason said something that kind of resonated with me. I had that almost exact same emotion. It's like after my first DNF, I was like, kind of feeling sorry for myself. And then that following Saturday, I worked a finish line to come to Trail Challenge with Dyno Racing. Shout out to Dyno. And I spent 10 hours at this finish line and got to see like all these first time 50K runners and people come through PR. I got to see my friends bring home, podium hardware. And I was just like you said, Jason, the DNF doesn't matter. Like this is why I'm here. Like this is one of the many reasons why I love this so much. God, would I have loved to have held that buckle on October 13th? Yes. But that doesn't like make or break, who I am as like a trail runner. I love it so much that, it's an arbitrary number, right? Like, just same thing. Like my goalpost keeps moving. And the fact that, Aum said something that really hit me Monday. We talked about 100 miler, my goal in 2025. And the fact that I even thought that maybe I was ready in 2024 to me seems significant now that I look back on it, considering that was my goal for 2025. So that makes me really, really happy. But outside of that 100-mile number, it's not going to make, it's not going to make me who I am as a runner at all. Like the community and just like the involvement, that's what makes this experience so special to me.
Yeah.
I think what Albie said in the beginning about why he runs is he wants to spend hours in the woods, right? And running long distances. Nowhere in that introduction of why he's out there running did he use the word finish line. Not once. He didn't mention a medal. He didn't mention a buckle. He didn't mention any of that. He mentioned just going to run in the woods for a very long time is his enjoyment. Like, question I would pose to you, Albie, is like, how did you come to that idea? I mean, you mentioned losing weight, the Spartan race, and all of that stuff, but you could have run, half marathon or, a marathon for that matter, which is still a long distance. Like, how did it become like, I want to just be out there for miles on end, hours on end for that matter?
It's because something happens. Something different happens when you what's the right way to put this? I've had this conversation with my girlfriend about running up to the top of a summit at sunrise. The sunrise is more beautiful when I had to run for 4 hours to get there.
Oh, hell yeah.
The thought process, what's going on in my brain, how I'm solving or failing at solving or working out, or all the problems that I've got going on in my life, big, small, or otherwise, we're having spitballing sessions with myself while I'm out, running 25 miles through the woods on a Saturday or 50 miles up. Like it's that whole, you almost have this like outside of body experience. It's not the runner's high. It's when you have pushed yourself to the point that the physicality of what you've done is now it's hit its like limit. You get to transcend a little bit. It's like, I've explained it to, I've explained it a little bit to my one of my younger sisters who she has a very interesting job in that she is how am I going to word this? She's a spirit guide journey. She's a spirit journey guide. She like takes people on, like she takes people on ayahuasca journeys, and she went to school for like psilocybins, and she's a microdoser, and we have interesting differences in how we feel about recreational drugs. I'm on one side, she's on the other, but everything I have explained to her about the way that I feel when I push my body physically till I reach this euphoric point, which doesn't always feel good. It just is that euphoric point. She goes, She goes, that's what happens when you do psychedelics. She said,
Yeah.
everything you're describing to me is the state people are trying to reach when they're doing controlled doses of psychedelics. I'm doing it without a substance. And
That gel is a substance.
I run with Uncrustables.
Oh, really? Welcome to
Uncrustables, and I have an industrial quantity. I save all my pickle juice, and I fill up little airplane alcohol bottles with pickle juice, and I throw them in my pack, and I run with pickle juice and peanut butter sandwiches.
Fantastic.
I'm so glad that you're part of the Uncrustable crew, Albie. You'll know the longer that you follow any of us that we are crazy about Uncrustables.
Well, they're easy to carry. It's just everything is perfect. And you have to be careful. You need the 210 calorie ones, not the 350s, because they're too much. So I can't get them at Costco.
So
the Nutella ones, I just tried the Nutella ones. Are fire, by the way.
Oh,
go ahead.
Nutella Uncrustables.
I've seen them, I haven't tried them.
Oh, you
just got them in the Midwest.
I wanted to put a comment out there from our good friend at Run Try Bike, Ultra Miriam. She
I know her.
Yeah, she actually says that she's so glad she was near her phone when this discussion began. Albie, I love your story of transformation. We first met at your Loopy Looper aid station. Out of my 41 ultras, I've had 6 DNFs, and I'm glad. And she says DNFs are not failures, but lessons learned and opportunities for future success. So I want to ask, so one thing I do want to preface before I ask this question is it goes back to Jason's point about having a good cry after his first DNF. Like, I will tell you that regardless of everything I'm saying here, like, I want to tell everybody here who's watching this episode, like, it is okay to embrace the suck and feel all the emotions, the highs and the lows of this. Like, after my most recent DNF, after past DNFs, like, I've had a few good cries about it. I've felt frustration, guilt, sadness, imposter syndrome. You know, it goes back to, like, you've put in the late night runs, the early morning runs, you showed up day in and day out for months. And at the end of the day, like, you want to succeed, but, you know, like, it's okay to feel both the good and the bad emotions. And, you know, even though we are talking about positivity and embracing the joy, I think that there's two sides to that. And also just realizing that, like, all those emotions are inherently what make us human and what make this process so beautiful, that, you know, when you are able to experience those emotions, you also appreciate the joy more, and also those little moments more, like Albie was talking about. I mean, the day after my Moab, like, I've had the best experiences with food after, like, my worst experiences at races. Like, the day after Moab, you can ask Jason, he was there. Like, man, we went to this Italian pizza place, and I was finally starting to get food down to my stomach after I puke like a faucet with this guy. And
I've never heard anybody say the words puked like a faucet.
Jason can attest to it.
It's very descriptive.
He does not understand how stuff was coming out of me, even though there was nothing in me. But man, like, that pizza we had, that Italian place in Moab, was like the best pizza I've had in years. And I think that goes back to, like hiking for 4 hours to see the sunrise versus just getting the sunrise. And just appreciating those little moments. So I want to talk about what Miriam said. Like, when do you, like, there are conversations that we have in our head about this, all of our heads about this, where you start to think about things over and over again, the what ifs, and then it feels like you're starting to bang your head up against the wall. How do all of you switch from that mindset of, like, just continuing to repeat the what ifs and having those negative and intrusive thoughts and converting them into, like, lessons learned, and something that you can take into the next thing or into the next part of your journey on the process?
I'll take that first. I came to realize that nobody gives a shit. Literally nobody gives a shit whatsoever.
Amen.
I mean, I said earlier, I had to go look up on Ultra Sign Up when the DNF occurred because I couldn't remember it. So if I can't remember my own results, chances that Susie in Sarasota, Florida, who follows me on Instagram, doesn't fucking know when I did it either, right? And once you're able to realize that, I think your concern about whether or not you're going to DNF doesn't become about the kudos or the backslaps or anything like that. You start thinking about your own enjoyment, and you think about what it means to you to then be able to pursue the next goal as healthy as you possibly can. And the four of us are ultra runners, but I'm also an Ironman, and I have a DNF at the Ironman race. The year I did it was 2019. I was racing Ironman Wisconsin, and the story goes like this. I got selected in the lottery in December of 2018 for Western States. I had already registered for Rocky Raccoon in February of 2019, going to race Western States in basically July 4th of 2019, and then race Ironman Wisconsin in September of 2019. And in between Western States and Ironman Wisconsin, I was on the massage table, and I said to the masseuse, I said, I can't wait for this shit to be over. And it's the first time I've ever uttered those words because I could feel the burnout coming. Get to Wisconsin, get in the water on practice swim day, and it was gorgeous. Man, it was gorgeous. Race day comes, and it's awful. Windy as all get out. I swam 0.6 of a mile, water splashing all over the place. I look at my watch, it was 30 minutes. And I was like, I'm not doing this shit for 2 hours. Like, there's just no way. Because then I got to get out on a bike for 112 miles, and I got to run a marathon after this. No chance. I wave my hand. Jet ski pulls me out of the water, and we go to the dock. And I'm thinking to myself, was this the right decision? To your point, like, could I have done it? And I sit on the dock, and I realize I've already got 8 finishes at this Ironman distance race. I don't need another one to prove to anything to anybody. And sitting next to me was a young girl this was her first. And she was DNFing after having trained for a year, and she was in full on tears. And I realized in that moment what my role was, which was to be consoler, to be shoulder, to listen, and to talk to her about this process. And after we had this conversation, like, it all dissipated from her, like the tears stopped, and she was able to put everything into perspective. And I think that's the key, is putting these things into perspective. I'll send it over to you, Joe, to answer Aum's question next.
Yeah. Hopefully I captured this right. So I kind of had a thought too. Something that Albie said really resonated with me. And kind of when I was sitting with all the emotions and the ifs and like I shoulda, couldas and all this nonsense that really wasn't serving me anyways. I wasn't going anywhere. It's kind of like what Aum said. I was just kind of beating my head off the wall with all that. And I was thinking, like all this training I did, and like I spent all this time getting up early, and I almost like all this wasted time to get ready for. But something kind of occurred to me just now. It's like, kind of like what Albie talked about, like running up a mountain to see, like, you like, I'm paraphrasing Albie obviously, but kind of my take on what he said is like, you can enjoy a sunset so much, or sunrise so much more when you had to work to get there. And throughout my 100-miler journey, I had so many of those moments, and I really honestly don't think I was taking inventory of all those. Really up until it kind of just dawned on me. Like I had so many of those moments, like kind of like what you said. I mean, I've had some really good cries. I've had breakthroughs on some of these moments, just kind of out in the woods by myself, just doing my thing. And I don't know if that answers the question necessarily, but man, I like just something about what you said there. It's like kind of struck me like a bolt of lightning. And it's really making me like, I'm unpacking this kind of while we're talking, just like how I feel about certain things. And yeah, I don't know if I actually answered Aum's question, but that was just something that, I just like really absorbed a lot, Albie, man. So thanks for saying that. That's really like really refreshing way of looking at that. And it just really dawned on me.
That was beautiful.
All those little moments. Yeah.
Before I turn it over to Albie, I have to say that you said dawned on me with sunrise, and that is an incredible pun, dude. I don't know if that was
right. Yeah. Not intended, but I'll take it, Dude,
take it. Take it. We live for the dad jokes. All right. Well, all All right, Albie, we got to turn it over to you.
Joe, I think what you just said is, I'm going to paraphrase you.
Yeah, go ahead.
All
Man.
the work that you do in an effort to become a better runner, what you're actually doing is you're becoming a better Joe.
Yeah.
And so
right, yeah.
all of the rest of that, right? Everything about, you know, you when you work hard to go see that sunrise, that makes you a better you. The runner part, that's the thing. It's not, that's the intangible part, the thing that's getting better. All of us here, the thing that's getting better, whether we cross a finish line or not, it's us as people. I'm a better partner. I'm better at my job. I'm a better father. I'm better at all those things because I have learned how to. I've learned how to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go out for a 20-mile run before I have to go to work. I've learned, and that takes discipline, and that discipline gets applied in other areas of your life, and the way you solve problems, and the way all of that just makes kind of you a better you. We kind of all have these, like, everybody here has a DNF story, and I think I want to make a point to say I don't want. And this is the danger of having a DNF conversation, right? You don't want it to turn into, oh, when it gets hard, just quit. And I don't think that's anything. That's not what any of us are talking about. I think a lot of it has to do with, you should remember to respect why you showed up. If you are someone who showed up, if you're an elite runner and you showed up to win a race, your DNF could be, you get halfway in and you realize you have an insurmountable gap between you and the guy ahead of you, and you're not having your day, you drop the race. It could be you're showing up to run a better time than you did at this race last year. It could be you are just trying to finish. It could be you're just trying to show up to see what you can do. Or it could be you're showing up to just go have fun and run far in the woods. If you show up with a goal and then you continue, and then you proceed to respect that goal, then whether you finish the race, meet your goal, stand on the podium, get a buckle, or DNF, it's having integrity with the goal that you set out to do and respecting that. And the outcome then becomes not whether or not you were what's perceived objectively as successful, but within the context of, this is what I went to do. And it kind of, so for me now, I run very few races now. I've DNF'd races for all kinds of reasons. I DNF'd a race because I decided to run a race right after I had COVID. I DNF'd a race because I started a race with a cellulitis infection in my leg. That was a fun one. I ran 60 miles of a 100-mile race with a cellulitis infected leg, and then eventually it just wouldn't move anymore. I started a race in the middle of a tropical storm. That was a bad idea. Now, I have finished lots of races too. I don't care to talk about them. They're not the good stories. The good stories are not the ones where I went out and did really well and, I finished better than I thought. The good stories are the ones where, man, I ran in the pouring rain. I think I had hypothermia. It was 8 hours, and those are the fun stories. And then I go, oh, did you finish? No, I didn't care. I got to the end and I realized I was at mile 82. And I had 6.5 hours to go the last 18 miles. I could have walked it backwards if I wanted to, but I don't want to. 82 miles was good enough. So what I do now is I pace, and it is the best. It's the best choice I ever made. I'm like a specialty pacer. I'm a nighttime guy. That's it. I will show up for you at between 11 and 12 o'clock, and then we are going to chase the sunrise together. Because everyone who's ever run overnight, that about 2-3 o'clock in the morning, you will quit for any reason. Any reason. You've been in the dark forever. It's never going to get better. Every problem is the worst problem you've ever had. Nothing is good. And if you just had somebody there with you, talking to you, telling you stories, connecting with you, listening to you, and you just go, and I keep telling, and I've probably done this a half a dozen times now, where I'll go and I'll run 30 to 40 miles with somebody to finish out a 100-mile race. And I love that overnight part, because I say, let's go chase the sun together. And and it's, I've done it. I've done it with a friend of mine twice at Eastern States. I've done it I've done it at Leadville. I did it at Leadville this year. That was fantastic. That was wonderful. A guy, and I ran 53 miles with a friend. I ran more than half of her race with her about 2 months ago. It was her first 100. And we're tight now because we spent that time together. 2 weekends ago, there was a guy who lived in my town. Somehow we've never met each other. I realized he was 4 blocks from me. He was 4 blocks away. He's a runner. He runs all over town. How we've never met, I'll never know. I saw because he had put out a call on our town's Facebook page that he was doing a fundraiser for a really small kind of grassroots organization called Semper Fido, which is they help to pair veterans with PTSD with service dogs. And I'm like, this is great. And he said he was raising money for them, and he was going to run 100 miles within our town. Now, this is my town, I've run it. The perimeter of my town is a 10K. So it's a pretty tough, you got to run a lot of streets. And he had never run 100 before. He was doing it just because he, kind of same thing, wanted to do it, but he was doing it fat ass style. The guy was doing a fat ass 100-mile race and didn't have any ultra experience. He had a really great community. He had family that was coming with him and kind of like pacing him on a bike, and that was it. And so I shot him a message and I said, hey, I'll come run with you overnight. And I did. And I showed up about 11:30 at night. He's 70 miles in, and his things were getting real for him. I've never met him before, ever. We then spent 9 hours together running the last 30 miles. Well, the last 29, because the 30th mile, there wasn't a dry eye anywhere because we stopped by he kept using his house as his aid station. And for his 100th mile, he looped back to his house and collected his 9-month pregnant wife, and they walked their last mile together.
Oh, wow.
And
Incredible.
the 9 hours that we spent together were the first 9 hours I've ever spoken to him. And like, I remember we finished, and he just looked at me and he said, I know I would have quit if you hadn't been here. And
that's beautiful.
He wasn't broken. He wasn't hurt. He wasn't, he had all the normal things that are wrong with you after you run 100 miles, right? Everything hurt. Nothing was, but I realized that the joy and the satisfaction and the fulfillment that I get out of showing up for somebody else now, I almost don't want to run my own races anymore, because that's it. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, and I'll touch on that too. I will have always said that the 100-mile distance, the race begins at mile 60, because you've just run 100K and it dawns on you that you've got to run another fucking 40 miles. You're like, holy shit, right? And that's when the night starts to creep in, and that's when it gets dark, and that's when you start questioning all your life choices, and every muscle that was kind of sore is now really sore. And helping people through that moment, I'm with you, Albie. Like, I love it. I have paced at Leadville as well. I've gone up and over Hope Pass in the middle of the day, which is awesome, kind of cool. You could see it actually. But then running in the middle of the night from May Queen to the finish line as the sun comes up can't be beat. Like, it's just an amazing experience, and being able to be there with somebody to help them, to hold their hand through the process is amazing. This year I've had the opportunity and the honor to pace Aum twice. The first time was at Tahoe, the Tahoe 200, and we were going 50 miles together. And we started in the daylight and we ended up going throughout the night. And I know that there were probably moments for him where he was like, I just want to stop for a moment. And it's like, yeah, let's not stop for a moment. Let's just keep moving until we can get to the finish line. And then at Moab, we started in the daylight again, and we finished, we covered, 16 miles in like 8.5 hours. He was in bad shape, and it was dark out, late night. But in that moment, I thought to myself, like, there is no bringing him back from where he's at. And if I have to make the decision to pull him from this course, that's what I'm going to do. But he made the decision on his own, so I didn't have to do that. But throughout that night portion, right, we were telling stories, and I like my brain works, and I'm sure everybody says this in a unique way. Like whenever I see mountain ranges, I always wonder like what were the settlers thinking when they're in their covered wagon with fucking wooden wheels, cows that are like dying, and like they look at that mountain and they're like, let's go up and over it. And I always ask the question, like, what the hell would these people have done in this moment?
I have to finish that story with the question you asked me while we were out on the trail. Did you ever think that a Puerto Rican kid from the Bronx was going to pace you, an Indian kid from LA, in the middle of fucking nowhere, Moab?
Yeah.
I was like, no,
Right.
never.
And those are the moments that Albie's talking about right there, is that connection time, especially in the middle of the night. And one of the questions I also asked you was, how many people do you think have walked this path that we're on right now?
A lot.
Hundreds, tens of thousands. His response was a lot. Like, great insight, brother. Thanks. But I think in those moments in the dark, when you're trying to connect with each other, is really when the races happen, and those are the memories. Because to Albie's point, like, man, I honestly don't remember the DNFs I've had. Like, I pulled myself, shit happened, it wasn't fun anymore, it hurt. But I do remember the times that I've paced people, the times that I've helped them get through their hard moments, to not DNF, and celebrate with them as part of that whole process.
When I'm on, I've said this many times before, and it's only been reaffirmed by the most recent DNF, my fifth one now, that when I'm on my deathbed, I'm not going to remember the result I had at the Santa's Fun race. Excuse me for the example, third place finish or whatever in like 2025 or something like that. I might even at some point I'm going to have like, I might be doing this long enough. I might not remember which 100 or what year that was, what DNF that was, what the outcome was, but I am going to look back on that deathbed, and I'm going to remember the laughs that I had with Jason at that race, looking at the ski lift sign, like the arrow going up and him ready to abandon ship, like the broken water pump he went to go look for while I took a nap in the dirt. Like, seeing my friends cross the finish line when I wasn't able to finish my own race. I got out there at 2 a.m. to see two really good friends finish the Moab 240. Like, those are the moments that you remember, and it's not because of the outcome, it's because of the feeling. Like, you remember the laughter, the smiles, you might even remember the cries and the tears and the emotional moments, the 9 hours pacing, and you might have only said like 2 words to each other, but those 2 words were like, but that phrase might have been, I couldn't have finished without you. Like, those are the moments that make this sport so amazing and make this process so amazing. And I think that more than my next finish line, I'm looking forward to having more of those moments, because the longer you stay in this, whether it's wearing the runner hat or the pacer hat, which I've had the privilege of wearing, the aid station captain, volunteer, like, you are going to have more of those incredible moments.
Joe, before you wrap up the show, I do want to add this too, for all of us who have experienced the DNF, and for those of you who are going to experience one down the road, is your level of fitness doesn't go to zero all of a sudden just because you DNF the race. You're starting at an elevated level compared to where you were from the beginning. So remember that is your baseline is now much higher than when you first started training. So when you go attack that next goal, you're already starting at a level that's much higher than when you were when you started. And so think about that as you get ready to plan your future goals, that you're not a failure. You've built this fitness, you've built this endurance, you've built this mindset all along. And to Albie's point earlier, you're a much different person today than you were yesterday, when that moment comes. So just, you're starting here now versus here. And then the next time you go out, you're going to be starting here versus here. So it's just continuously building that process for yourself to get you to that next finish line, wherever that is. I'll turn it over to you, Joe.
Before you wrap it up, Joe, I just want to quickly say the Joe that I met a year ago is a far cry from the Joe that I know now. And I am so damn proud of you, man.
Oh, man, that means a whole heck of a lot coming from all you guys. Yeah, it means a lot. I mean, thank you. Yeah, I agree. You know, when I first talked to you, I think I was just coming off of like a, not just a 50K. It's still a preposterous number, but I was just kind of like taking inventory of all these conversations we had since we've met. I was just like, yeah, I mean, I mean, it didn't happen, but that's still just the fact that I eyed that buckle to me is kind of compelling. And I know I'll be ready for the next try, and at least I'll have some new insights, some new lessons learned. I've already got one kind of in my crosshairs right now. I guess I won't officially put that out there, but I'm already looking for my next one. So I don't
Quick
know,
shout
Albie.
out.
What's that?
Quick shout out to Colin Robinson, my guy. He is like, if you follow him on Threads or on Instagram, Colin Robinson _, the dude gives you so many things to think about when he posts. And he wrote on our chat right now, the goal is always the starting line, not the finish line. And I think that really says a lot.
Yes.
Heck yeah, man. Well said. Well, yeah. So Albie, I don't know. Maybe I might have to reach out to you, see what you're doing May 31st if everything goes the way it's going to go. But
Maybe.
Albie,
We'll see.
I just want to, yeah. I just want to say, man, thanks for coming on the show. It's kind of an experiment. I think this went well. Hopefully, we all take away. You said some really great things, Albie, that I'll be thinking about for a very long time. And eventually, I might have to have you back on for a full episode. Maybe I'd like to know more about you. I really appreciate all your insights today. Gave me a lot to think about. And thank you, Aum and Jason. Like I said, I always value your guys' input on, success, failure, whatever it may be, not just running related stuff. So it means a lot you guys came on. This was awesome. We might have to have some more of these roundtable ideas in the future. We tried it before. It worked out really well. But I'd like to bring a couple of these on, beyond the finish line, maybe in the future. And thank you, everybody that chimed in with comments and questions. That's so cool. These are starting to become more frequent as we build up an audience. And it always just makes me really, really jazzed to see people interacting. I mean, that's why we're here, right? So, man, thank you, Albie. It was awesome having you on, man. Your story is incredible. And, man, keep doing what you're doing. Just real quick, maybe give everyone kind of a shout out where they can find you on Instagram and Threads. I recommend following Albie. Really inspirational dude. So,
yeah, I do most of what I do in the social media world, which is limited, right? I'm just a normal guy. You can find me on Instagram. I'm at Snuggly Viking. That's really the best way to track me down.
heck yeah. I'd recommend follow everybody. And do us all a big favor again. Like, share, rate, review, wherever you get your Everyday Athlete Podcast Network content. This is a great network. It's a growing network. There's no other community quite like this. And I'm so glad that you're all a part of this. And for now, I'll leave you guys and have a great evening. And I'll see you next time beyond the finish line.